Glass Garden of Plenty. Feeling the joy of abundance as you use it. On a sunny windowsill sat a round glass terrarium, no bigger than a melon, its curved walls beaded with tiny drops of water that never quite fell. Inside lived a fairy named Leora, 3 beetles, a shy pale snail, 2 ladybugs, and 1 very opinionated ant called Bristle. To anyone outside, it looked like a pretty ornament with moss and pebbles. To those within, it was the whole universe. Leora loved the topmost branch of the tiny bonsai tree. From there she could see everything, the moss hills, the pebble creek, the mushroom ring, and the shimmering pool of dew that gathered each morning in a curled leaf. She treated that pool like treasure. Every dawn she would swoop down, cupping the dew into crystal thimbles made from hollowed seeds, hiding them behind a curtain of lichen in a secret nook. "Just in case," she whispered, wings flickering. "We don't know if more will come tomorrow." Bristle approved. "Smart fairy," he clicked, his antennae twitching. The glass world is small. There's only so much dew, only so many glow seeds, only so much of everything. If we don't store, we'll starve. The others believed him. So the beetles stacked dry seeds in shadowy corners. The snail tucked favourite leaves under stones. Even the ladybugs counted spots of lichen and decided which ones were too nice to touch. The terrarium was full of life, but it didn't feel that way. It felt tight, like everyone was holding their breath. One afternoon, the girl who owned the terrarium pressed her nose to the glass. Leora froze, watching her giant hazel eye. "I think it needs more pretty things," the girl murmured. The next day she returned with a handful of fresh moss, a sprinkle of tiny amethyst chips, and a new miniature fern. Her hands moved joyfully, arranging everything with little hums of satisfaction. She wasn't worried about using up the stones or moss. She seemed delighted just to place them, to enjoy them, to show them. Leora noticed something. Every time the girl felt that bubbly delight while touching the terrarium, more gifts appeared. Over the following days, new pebbles, a twisty stick, even a tiny glass mushroom that glowed faintly. "How is she doing that?" Leora wondered aloud. Bristle snorted. "She's big. They have more stuff out there. That's why." But Leora wasn't convinced. The way the girl glowed while arranging things, it felt like the moss itself was responding, fluffing higher, turning greener. It reminded Leora of the feeling she sometimes had when she forgot to be afraid and just enjoyed a sunbeam. That night, lying in the crook of a leaf, she thought about their hoarded dew and hidden seeds. The secret stashes did not make her feel safe. They made her feel worried. Worried someone would find them. Worried they still weren't enough. Worried tomorrow would come and prove her right to be afraid. "And what if?" she whispered. "The feeling is what matters." The next morning, dawn light spilled through the glass, catching every droplet on the walls. Leora hovered over the dew pool, hands trembling. She could scoop and hide as usual, or she could try something else. Her heart fluttered. Just one experiment, she told herself. One morning, instead of hoarding the dew, she fanned her wings gently, sending a fine mist across the leaves. Droplets beaded on the moss tips, on the beetles' shells, on Bristle's antennae, until everything sparkled. "Hey!" Bristle squeaked. "You're wasting it!" Leora giggled. a sound like a tiny chime. "Look how beautiful you are," she said, spinning in the moist air. "Drink, wash, play. There's enough." The beetles eyed the shining moss suspiciously. The snail peeked out, then slowly slid into a glistening patch. "Ooh," he sighed. "This feels nice." As everyone relaxed into the wetness, drinking, splashing, laughing, the terrarium began to change. More condensation gathered on the glass, thicker and faster than usual, as if the air itself had decided to join the party. Within an hour, new droplets were racing down the sides in tiny rivers. Leora stared. "We just spread the dew around, and now there's more." "That's coincidence," Bristle muttered, though he was happily polishing his dewy antennae. But it didn't feel like coincidence. Inside her chest, something had softened, like a knot untying. She felt light, open, grateful, and the glass world seemed to echo that feeling back. Over the next days, Leora kept experimenting. She brought out the hidden glow seeds and planted them openly in the nicest spots, arranging them in swirling patterns where everyone could see their beauty. She used the shiny pebbles to create a winding path instead of burying them in dull piles. Whenever she placed something with the feeling of, "Isn't this amazing?" the terrarium responded. The glow seeds sprouted faster. Tiny bioluminescent fungi appeared where none had been before. The girl outside noticed the sparkle and, delighted, added even more treasures. Yet every so often, Bristle's voice crept in. "What if this all stops?" he'd hiss late at night. "What if the girl forgets us? What if no more dew comes?" On those nights, Leora felt her stomach tighten and her wings droop. The next morning, the glass would fog less. The dew pool would be smaller. "It follows us," she realized one dim day, looking at the thin line of water. "When we feel fear of not enough, this little world seems to agree." A week later, the test came. The girl's parents moved the terrarium to a lower shelf to make room on the windowsill. Down there, less light reached the moss. The air felt cooler. The dew was faint. Panic swept through the garden. "We're doomed," Bristle screeched, racing in frantic circles. "The light is gone," cried one of the ladybugs. The snail retreated deep into his shell. Leora felt fear clawing up her chest. "This proves it," the fear whispered. "The good was temporary. You should have hidden more, saved more, used less." She almost believed it, almost curled herself into the tiniest ball and joined the chorus of Not Enough. Then she remembered the girl's face, glowing with joy as she rearranged the moss. She remembered the times she'd spread dew, used the beautiful things, admired them openly, and how the terrarium had answered with more. And she remembered how small and pinched she'd felt when she'd hoarded. What if this is another choice point, she thought. Another chance to decide which feeling I'm going to beam at the glass? The law of their little universe was simple, she realized, even if no one had named it. Whatever feeling they held, fear or trust, scarcity or plenty, was like a song the glass could hear. And the glass called in matching echoes. Leora took a long, slow breath. She flew to the center of the terrarium, over the dry-looking moss, and clapped her hands. A sprinkle of faint light dust fell from her wings. "Everyone," she called, voice steady. "Come out. The beetles grumbled but gathered. The snail peered out. Even Bristle crept forward, shaking. "Yes, it's darker," Leora said. "Yes, the dew is smaller today. Those are the facts." She touched a pebble with her bare foot, feeling its coolness. "But we get to decide what song we send through this glass." Bristle stomped. "A song won't bring water." "Has complaining ever done it?" she asked gently. He opened his mouth, closed it. "We've seen this," she went on. "When we feared losing, we got more reasons to fear. When we enjoyed and used what we had, more came. Not because we earned it, but because we matched it." They stared at her, unsure. "So," Leora said, her voice brightening, "let's try something new. Let's act as if this is the best day our little garden has ever had. Let's imagine more light, more dew, more flowers, so clearly that our bodies feel like it's already here. The snail blinked. "You mean pretend?" "Not pretend," Leora said. "Practice. Feel now how we want tomorrow to feel." She closed her eyes and pictured the terrarium back on the windowsill, bathed in sunshine. She imagined thick carpets of moss, dew pools so deep they made little lakes, and new plants, the girl might add. She felt the warmth on her wings, the cool splash of water on her toes, the joy of seeing everything glowing. Her heart swelled. Slowly, one of the ladybugs joined in, whispering, "I imagine more aphids on the fern than I could ever eat." A beetle added, "I imagine so many seeds that I give them away and still have plenty." Even Bristle, after a long struggle, muttered, "I imagine not having to count crumbs." As each of them painted these scenes in their minds, their bodies relaxed. The panic in the terrarium loosened. The air, which had felt tight and stale, now hummed softly. Nothing had changed on the outside. The shelf was still low. The light was still dim. But inside, there was a new song, a feeling of we are cared for. There is more coming. We can enjoy what we have while it flows to us. That night, the girl walked past the lower shelf and frowned. "Why is it down here?" she asked. Without thinking much about it, she lifted the terrarium back to the top of the windowsill and angled it so more light could stream in. The next morning, the sun poured through the glass with greedy joy. Condensation bloomed on every surface. Dew pooled deep in the curled leaf, more than Leora had ever seen. Tiny sprouts had pushed up overnight beside the older plants, new green fingers unfurling. The amethyst chips sparkled brighter. A new patch of moss seemed to have appeared where bare soil had been. Bristle stared, jaw hanging. It's back," he whispered. "All of it, more of it." Leora dipped her hands into the dew pool and laughed aloud. She scooped a double handful and flung it high, letting droplets rain over everyone like celebration. "Stop wasting!" Bristle began on reflex, but the word tasted wrong in his mouth now. The rain felt too good. Leora met his eyes. "When we hide it, we feel poor, even when we're not," she said quietly. "When we enjoy it, use it, show it, we feel rich even before more comes. And this little world keeps proving that what we feel is what we grow." The snail slid happily through the overflowing moss. "I like feeling rich," he said. So they made new habits. They still stored a few seeds because wise creatures prepare, but they no longer did it with tight, fearful hearts. They treated their stashes as part of their abundance, not proof that the world would run out. They decorated openly with their favorite things, admiring them instead of hiding them. Glow seeds became lanterns along the path. Shiny pebbles lined the dew pool like jewels. When a new mushroom popped up, they didn't panic about it fading someday. They gathered beneath it that very night, singing and dancing and savouring the soft light. And, as always, more came. Sometimes the more arrived as new items placed by the girl. Sometimes it was a surprise sprout, a deeper green, a thicker fog of dew. But most reliably, it arrived first as a feeling warmth in their chests, ease in their bodies, a quiet knowing that they lived in a generous universe even inside a glass bowl. Leora would often perch on her favourite branch at dusk, watching the last rays of sun slide across the curved wall. She would think of all the times she had clung to her thimbles of dew, sure that safety lived in what she could hide. "Safety isn't there," she murmured to the leaves. "It's in the song I'm humming." Below her, the beetles ambled along the glowing path. The ladybugs chased drifting bits of pollen, and Bristle lounged beside the dew pool, not counting anything at all. "Hey, Leora," he called up. "Look, we have a lot." She smiled. "We do," she agreed, "and we're really good at letting it flow through us." Outside, the girl laughed at something her parents said and tapped the glass gently with her fingertip. "Look how pretty it is when the light hits it," she said. The terrarium shimmered in reply. Not because life was perfect, or because nothing ever changed, but because inside it, a small fairy and her tiny friends had learned a new way to feel about what they had. They no longer lived in a cramped world of not enough inside a round wall. They lived in a glass garden of plenty, where enjoying and sharing what was there was the very magic that called in more.